Hi, Peter.
Hey, Samuel.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
All right, next question.
Is it better to have one code base?
Or separate repositories?
Oh,
Is
oh,
hey, as with all things in software engineering, it depends.
I think that you definitely always want to aim for the simplest solution.
There's been this big shift to a microservice solution,
Yes.
right? Like this microservice for everything, putting the platform first and those kind of things, which I think a lot of teams or like startups particularly, they already want to start with that because they're like, oh yeah, we have to prepare everything for the future. We have to scale things, right?
Which in this case means just having one code base, one repository, one deployment pipeline. Even as a developer, just having one instance of your IDE opened is just way simpler. What do you think?
I think it is simpler, but there are times where you kind of have to have different repositories.
Most of the time, this is where we actually see the problems, is that they start very large, very, very distributed, like all these different microservices, but they struggle to keep control of it. And very often this is because it's a startup, and startups tend to have very small teams, and there's just a lack of ownership on all of those different services. That's why I think like a monolithical application to start with is much more interesting, because again, as a startup, you probably do not want to like reinvent the wheel every time.
Of
There are
course,
certain solutions like you want to get to the market very quickly.
as soon as possible. Yeah.
You're not going to spend a lot of time on building these very complex back office tools, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to use something that's more out of the shelf, out of the box, do some configuration specific to you, and start using it.
If you have like different kind of systems,
Yeah,
products, like you have, let's say, a Slack app, you have a web, mobile, obviously you can't combine.
yeah.
But if we're talking about like a single product or application, then the simplest thing is always to have one source of truth, which is like
Yeah.
scaling is one thing where like if you have like a really large team, that's still simple. Do you think that's still simple to have one repo?
If you have a really large team, I can imagine that you start to get into each other's way, right? You start to step onto each other's toes. You're changing code that someone else touches, PRs that just go all the way, and it becomes harder to manage. Like if you have a really big system, you usually have different parts of your system, right? Different modules, different whatever you want to call it, and you should aim to have them somewhat independent of each other. Of course, they have to work together, but you want them to be somewhat independent.
And I think very often this will at least be possible to keep it like that for a few years. And then at some point you may realize, oh, we actually have to, maybe this particular service is more critical to us than something else, and you want to split that off. And that's where the whole like platform thing becomes more interesting, because at that point in time, you will also have your team be growing, and you will have teams supporting other teams.
Some
Right?
momentum, yeah.
Exactly. And I think like both apply, but at different stages in a company and organization.
What I'm hearing from you is if you're just starting out, if you're just starting like a project, start with one repo, and depending on your needs, as the project grows, as the team grows, as the company grows, and then split it off into multiple repos.
Yeah, it's always aim for the simplest solution, and the simplest solution is always just one thing, and then you will know and you will feel it when that need arises, right? There is no, these are the exact conditions on which you have to change to multiple repositories or code bases. You will start feeling that friction. Things will go wrong, you will introduce bugs or conflicts all the time. And maybe then it might make sense to have several repositories.
And what about, instead of thinking of it like, separate repositories or your monolith application, what about seeing what your tech team specializes in, seeing what their strengths are, and taking it from that angle? Because that's where you'll get more cohesion, more momentum within the team. It might not be the end goal right now, but at least gives you momentum in the initial stage to reach market sooner. So you might have a team that really specializes in, I'm very good at working with one contained app, and another person is a specialist in another app. So you build it like that. Yeah. So instead of just thinking, no, the company wants to go in this direction, but the tech team isn't pulling in that direction, their strength is this. Yeah. What's your take on that?
again, as a startup, right? Like you don't want to spend too much time on the non-critical parts.
Yeah.
So you probably not gonna build your own fancy authentication service, right? You're going to use something off the shelf because authentication is hopefully because authentication in most cases is a solved problem, right? So you're not going to spend a lot of time on that particular element. If you're spending 90% of your team's capacity on building authentication, I think you're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And you should be focusing on what's your core. It's like your product, the thing you're actually trying to sell to customers. I think that's more important. And I think at some point you'll start to see, okay, this is for us more what our core domain is, and then they move on from that. And
then if you think about it in reverse, if you start from multiple repos, what could go wrong if you start with multiple repos instead of like a single repo?
Early on, first of all, you have to make decisions, right, on which responsibility belongs to which repository. And if you're just starting out, you don't know your system, you don't know your domain well enough. So you can't make those decisions unless you have like a crystal ball, but I don't have one. If you have one, sure, go ahead.
I would just say initially when you're starting out, keep things simple, use a monolith, but make it possible to scale it, right? I think that's more important. And
I like that,
yeah. And even in a monolith, like you can still write tests, you can still make sure it's...
I like that. Yeah, monolith has this negative connotation, like, oh, it's scary and it's going to grow into the spaghetti code, but that's not true. There's frameworks really assist you.
It's interesting because we had a talk from one of our colleagues the other day that explained like how can you do this in specific code bases, and it was one code base, but they had like different... They had like an API component, they had a web component, a backoffice component.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
They are able to, like, they set it up in a way that they are able to scale all of these things individually, because they have very, their use case was actually that they had like a very high traffic incoming API, like a webhook system, right?
True.
Which had to scale more easily. And if they scaled it on one single server, even though it's like a monolith, they had to deploy it to one single server, they would like, scale all their web application as well, which isn't necessary. But in their solution, they had a monolith and they were able to deploy to different servers, and they were able to scale just that specific server.
Yeah, I think we do agree there.
Yeah, I think we do. I think we.
I guess
I like that approach.
Should be pragmatic and keep it simple, right? Don't overcomplicate it for it.
Yeah, and it's so like even if you do pick one, there's still flexibility within it to, like, for example, what you said, in a monolith application, you can still separate things within it, and it gives you that flexibility. Not this myth of that you're locked in for life, you can't really change direction. It's not true, and it's really cool to see. Yeah, the team can get out of that.
If you build things properly and with quality, then I think you're always able to move away from it in one way or the other. So
cool.